Hey everybody, how's it going? It's been a long time since we've did just a straight stream. Actually, it hasn't been a long time. It's been a few weeks. I've been very busy at work lately. I've been picking up a whole bunch of overtime trying to catch up for all of the money lost in moving, which I'm not really complaining. I loved getting out of that place. San Antonio is not that great. I mean, it's not bad. It's just not great. So I was just trying to get out of there. Now that I'm at a new place, I'm enjoying it. But the cost of moving and all that other stuff has been like very taxing. Is the best way of putting it. So having to deal with all that stuff was a nightmare. And then everybody was always nickel and diming me for everything. Like, oh, you want to open up a new account, or you have to pay this deposit, for your utilities and blah 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 blah. And I was just like, I'm just going to start picking up extra days at work. And it just started culminating. So like my paychecks were like more than doubled. And now I'm just like, yeah, I like money. I like money. I like being able to have some extra cash in the pocket in order to, get things that I want. But at the expense of being able to be here live. I want to start doing this like a regular thing, like a regular weekly thing on Sunday, coming out here and just doing this kind of like in the afternoon. Just having to chill stream and just getting things ready for the week for all of you working stiffs who still work Monday through Friday 9 to 5s and stuff like that. I figured why not give you guys something. I don't know why this door is open yet. Create like this glow on my back, which will hopefully be remedied once the sun goes down. So I figured we might as well do this like once a week, kind of catch up on all the things that I missed on Sunday, because the Sunday is a great day for me to do this, because there's always good amount of staff at work on Sunday. Sunday is not one of the days that they pay me for weekend pay. That'd be Friday and Saturday. And so because it's just kind of perfect for me to, just take one day off, grind out the rest of the days at work, do my overtime and all that stuff, and still being able to come and talk to you about things that have been bothering me over the last week. And there's been a few. I have been noticing like a sharp decline in this thing. Since I talked about it, or at least since I set up the stream, I was seeing a little bit of it, talking about AI and how it steals people's content and how it's bad and it's awful and evil and blah, 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 blah. I kept seeing this stuff like over and over again. And then I set the stream up for, like probably a week ago. Just got the stuff ready to start the stream, do the announcements, put it on my channel, blah, blah, blah. And when I did, I just started seeing like everybody just stopped talking about it. And obviously it's not because of me, not me and my little small Twitter channel and YouTube channels and stuff like that. But maybe people just kind of stopped talking about it for whatever reason. Just kind of collectively stop talking about it. But I noticed a lot of people complaining about AI. And there's the kind of usual stuff that, intellectual property, it steals other people's intellectual property and all this stuff. And but I want to kind of cover a little bit more. I'm going to talk about that briefly because that's kind of dumb. But I want to talk a little bit about like tools and how tools are, and how like people like talk in tools as if like they're like moral agents who have their own set of like values attached to them, which they don't. I don't understand how people think like this, but they do. And that is kind of the arguments that kind of go down the line of, AI is bad because the government's going to use AI to kind of like oppress people with. And it's like, of course, like governments like to use whatever kind of tools and methods available to them in order to do the things that they want to do. But that's not a reason to like not invent the gun. That's not a reason not to invent, the cannon or anything like that. Of course, the governments are going to take those weapons and use them against people. Um, but that's not a reason for you to have like kind of armaments and weapons and technology in order to do this. And I'm not going to be one of these people who say, because I don't think it's not. I mean, it's sort of true, but not entirely. The whole argument that like tools are neither good nor bad. It's how you use them. It's not really particularly true. I think tools are ambivalent. I think that's the better way of putting it. People are going to put their own kind of values and stuff onto these tools. Even people who say those kind of weird lines about tools have no values, they're going to end up putting those kind of values on those tools anyway. So yeah, governments are going to use tools and stuff like that to oppress people. That's not out of the ordinary. But you can also use these tools to kind of counteract these things and to create good content and to do other things as well. Now, sure, you can make the argument that AI is just taking other people's stuff. And first of all, you don't own ideas. You don't own like concepts in your head. You can't control what's what I have on my computer. You can't tell me that I can't download certain things unless there's actual harm involved, right? And if someone creates something that a drawing, and then an AI looks at it and goes, okay, here's some good ideas in order to make other things when people ask me to make things, it's not stealing your work. Even if you subscribe to this kind of idea that intellectual property is valid and that you can own your own kind of intellectual property, so to speak, or intellectual monopoly is a better way of putting it. But all they're doing is just saying like, okay, so here's how like this one artist out of many artists who make in this kind of particular style does this way of kind of like around the eyes, right? So I'm going to remember that next time someone asks me to draw a girl with blonde hair and blue eyes with really thin eyes, I'm going to remember, okay, so I remember when this guy drew something like that, I'm going to draw an eyes, something like that. And also something very similar to like 100,000 other artists that made a similar picture. So it's not really taking that image. It's just learning how that image presents itself as and compared it to other images like it, and then recreate something very similar. That's what it's doing. But either way, intellectual property is not valid, and it's weird because I've seen like anarcho-capitalists and libertarians and anarchists, which I use that term loosely for left anarchists, who will go around and tell people that, like, oh, it's stealing intellectual, or it's stealing. Well, it's not, they're not using the term intellectual property. They're saying they're stealing artwork. And if you try to like ask them about like, well, do you think that like people can own their own intellectual property? Do you think that there should be like a monopoly on, intellectual properties? No pun intended. They're going to kind of like hem and haw, like, no. But, people, it's still taking their artwork without their permission. It's like, well, do you believe in this or not? But either way, as a side note, so like governments are going to use these kind of technologies, and they have been using similar technologies. They haven't been using the kind of new versions of the neural net processors that we've been seeing lately, right? With like Chat GPT in the past, until they got a hold of stuff like Chat GPT and stuff like that. But they're going to take like these technologies, and they've been using kind of algorithms in the past in order to kind of cipher out things that they're looking for, right? And try to like use it to fuck with people or something like that. But again, we use these kind of technologies all the time, and just because like one is a little bit more advanced than the other, why is that like a big problem now? So like there's tons of algorithms that like a lot of libertarians are going to be all about, and they're going to talk about how great they are. I may even disagree with a lot of them, especially things around cryptocurrency and NFTs and stuff like that, DAOs and all that stuff, Ethereum. But I mean, these are technologies that could be used for. Let's just give cryptocurrency the benefit of the doubt. That cryptocurrency is good, and that NFTs are good, and there's nothing bad about it. It's not a bubble. None of that stuff. We're gonna put all that stuff on the table and just say that like we're gonna ignore this for just a second, and let's just talk about these technologies just being good, full stop. Now, we could use these technologies in order to do good. Like we can, trade with people, and avoiding payment processors and any kind of things that would signal to the government that someone has made a profit. We can use that, kind of under the table. We can use these things to transmit cryptographic messages. Like I don't think Horizon does this anymore, but I know that when it was ZenCoin, you could use the money that you got, like the cryptocurrency that you got, in order to and spend it on encrypted messages from one person to another. And that was kind of neat. I think that was a kind of neat tool. I don't think anybody really ever used it, but I think it's a good technology. But let's just say it's something like that, right? So you can have a tool like that that could kind of disguise some of the things that you're doing and not alert federal agents to come fuck with you. But then the governments can use these same technologies, and they have been using these same technologies for other things to harm people. And they're even talking about creating some sort of like government cryptocurrency type thing in order to do it. And again, these are all kind of working on algorithms. We can say like, well, it's not one of these new algorithms. It's like, well, really, what's the delineation here? Like what's the line of demarcation that says that these kinds of algorithms are good and these other types of algorithms are bad? I need to know. And no one's been very clear upon it. Been very clear on it, other than, the new ones are kind of scary because, it can make images that are pretty cool. And you can have conversations with an AI bot that seem kind of human, that almost seem kind of human. And you can have basically like a 3D or a 3D, well, I guess a 3D representation. Like there's apps that do that. But you can have like these bots that can talk to you as if like they're your significant other. And that's kind of creepy. I think that's what it really boils down to is it's this kind of Luddite kind of idea that new technologies are scary and we don't know how they're going to be implemented. And I'm just going to like project like the worst ideas onto these things. And it kind of, and yeah, I mean, it's entirely possible that, like Skynet could happen, right? It's entirely possible, but not very, right? It's not, I don't think there's any clear evidence to show that that's going to be the case. It is a scary possibility, but I think it's very improbable. I think that's the better way of putting it. It's possible, but not probable, right? And I think a lot of people kind of like catastrophize stuff, and it kind of goes into like kind of catastrophization and how like a lot of people catastrophize things. What I mean by that is, and people do this in their everyday life too. Like, they're afraid of, public speaking or something like that. Right. And they think that, if they're going to go on stage, that people are going to make fun of them. People are going to talk behind their back, or people are going to laugh at them, or their pants are going to fall off, or, boogers going to fly out of their nose or something like that. And then they start like having these like things in their head, like, oh my God, like this is terrible. But how many times have you, seen someone like speak, like do like a public speaking thing and then stumble on their words, and everybody just kind of goes, oh, okay, whatever. No big deal. Or like someone sneezes or something like that, or it has like a real quick embarrassing moment there. And usually what happens when that happens is people just kind of go, okay, whatever. We're, it's a part of you being a human, just have something come out of your nose, or for you to sneeze inappropriately, or for you to stumble across your words or something like that. But people catastrophize these things in their mind. And people also do that to new technologies too. They see a new technology and they're just like, holy shit, like this is not good. This is really bad. Like think about all the worst things that could possibly happen. And that's your inevitable future. But, like when it comes to the government, yeah, it's pretty safe to say that any kind of tool that they're going to get, they're going to try to use it against people. And when they do, that's bad and everything, but it also doesn't mean that, that you can have access to these same technologies. You can have a gun, right? You can protect yourself, in theory. I don't think anybody is going to do it. I'm sorry. I'm really black-pilled when it comes to like, like any kind of violent resurrections that's going to happen in the United States. Like if January 6th was, the insurrection that was going to take over the government, then we're fucking doomed. We're absolutely fucking doomed. If that's the That's the tree of liberty getting refreshed. We need to put that idea to bed that people are not going to revolt against their government. It's going to take something. I mean, that's not to say that it's not possible, right? Like there's going to be a time where things are really bad in some place, and not even in America, where this has happened historically, and people are just going to be like, okay, yeah, this is too much. And if there's a possibility for them to resist, they're going to resist. Take for example what happened to Ceausescu, right, in Romania. They literally just dragged him out. They tracked him down. They dragged him out, and gave him a show trial and just fucking shot him and his wife in cold blood. Which good. I'm not saying that was a bad thing, but there is a breaking point at some point. I don't think we're even close to a breaking point in the United States. Not even close. And I think a lot of people kind of get just kind of used to it because it's more of a boiling frog scenario. Whereas in Romania, it was very quick, right? It was not gradually and suddenly, right? It was quick. It was just almost overnight. Everything just went completely totalitarian, and people were just like, we're not going to do this. But United States, whatever. I'm getting way off track. Sorry. So yeah, like going back to what I was saying, like you can use these tools to to also fight against the state. You can also use these tools to your benefit. You can also use these things to be evil to other people. You can do all sorts of things with technologies. Tools are they're ambivalent. They don't care. They don't care. I think that's a better way of putting it than they're neither good nor bad. Because people will impute their values onto those tools, right? And by proxy, I guess they could be kind of seen as good or bad, based on those things. But they just don't care. At the end of the day, like they don't care. And if they don't care, then you can use that to your advantage, and you can use that to, for your defense as well. So there's lots of algorithms that you can use in order to protect yourself from the government and the government tyranny, and the government's going to use these same tools against you. And if you know how they're used, and you can just use best practices, you can kind of protect yourself from a lot of that stuff digitally. And maybe we should talk a little bit about best practices, right? Best practices is not having a bunch of accounts on various different websites. Only have accounts on websites that you use. If you don't use those accounts, delete them because they will possibly be used as a vector in order to get other access to other accounts that you may use on the internet that are very important to you, like your bank information or your social media accounts. Fucking use a password, like a really good, strong password manager. Use very good passwords, passwords that don't have any kind of fucking meaning to them. Don't write them down. Don't use password with a capital P and capital P password _1, right? Don't make that your fucking password, for Christ's sake. Use a fucking strong password and use one that's hard for you to remember, but you can actually use your password manager to pull up when you need it, right? Use a VPN. Like the internet is a big scary place, and you wouldn't have sex with a hooker of sketchy origins without a condom. So why would you do the same thing on the internet? Always use a VPN if at all possible. Yeah, it's going to be kind of annoying because you're going to go to some websites and they're going to be like, hey, you're using a VPN. I just turn it off for a second and use their website and get back on it, or use their little CAPTCHA thing where you get the select the cars and select the traffic lights, right? And just move upon your day. All these things are very important, right? Very, very important. Just best practices. Now I want to talk a little bit. Moving along, I think I kind of hemmed this to death. Like at the end of the day, I'm going to boil this down to TLDR. Tools are ambivalent. They don't really care how you use them. You're just going to use them. You can put your own values on them or hatred on them for whatever reason, but they don't care. And people are going to use tools against you, and you can use tools to either protect yourself or use them against others. Just learn how they're used. Or just use best practices, right? Protect yourself. And intellectual property is not real. Speaking of intellectual property, that was a nice segue, I guess. Intellectual property is not just not real. It's not real even, I mean, it's real. Like, people will sue you for stuff. People will DMCA you for stuff. Blah 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 blah. But I don't think there's a sound justification for intellectual property, and there's not just that, but you don't not just own like a piece of work that you do. Even if you agree that you do, I don't understand how you could agree with like, oh, like I own a particular way of drawing an eye a certain way, and someone using an AI bot and they draw an eye in similar ways because it looked at the way that I do it particularly and puts it on other on other pieces of work, then that's stealing my property. It's not. You don't know what you're talking about. Shut the fuck up. Speaking of intellectual property, I want to talk a little bit about the kind of Eric July situation. Now, I ended up hiding the stream that I did with Larry because of bad audio issues, and we're getting that fixed. I'm very sorry about that. We're gonna, but I kind of want to just kind of briefly talk about the situation at hand. Like Eric July is a YouTube channel that I used to subscribe to. I wasn't always like the biggest fan of Eric July. I've always kind of had some kind of very minor criticisms of, like, I'm not a big fan of his band Backwards. I did like his like earlier hip hop stuff. I thought his earlier hip hop stuff was pretty good, and even once in a while I'll catch myself listening to it. But I'm not a big fan of the kind of particular rock that he was playing. I'm not really into like much screaming rock outside of like very specific like forms of melodic death metals, right? Other than that, I'm not really interested in like black metal and new metal and whatever the fuck it is. And I know that if you even like even mention a genre in anywhere near his band that's not exactly, he will fucking lose his shit. He did that with me because I was like, because I said like I'm not kind of interested in the kind of rap inspired like rock that you were playing or whatever it's called. And he was like, it's not rap rock. How dare you? And everybody was just, even his own fans were like, I don't think that's what he was trying to say. And it's fine that he's not a fan of your music. Just calm down. But either way, but I was kind of like, but it's very kind of like, I really don't like the how do I put this? It's very kind of like libertarianism 101 stuff, right? I've been a libertarian since about 2005. That was about the time that I started calling myself a libertarian. And I was kind of a little bit more of the kind of left, not even left, like moderate Democrat kind of. I was coming out of being a moderate Democrat at the time. And I was watching bullshit and Penn and Teller and so I really wasn't whatever. And then I think it was about 2007, I read For a New Liberty. Rothbard tricked me, and I used to make fun of ANCAPs. I should be like, yeah, you're stupid. You need a government at least. And then like I read that on a train ride, and when I got on the train, I was a small government libertarian. About that time, I've been whittling away at all that kind of old, kind of moderate Democrat kind of thinking, right? And I went over, then started becoming more like a kind of Ron Paulian. This is also before the Ron Paul campaign. But I was actually a big fan of Ron Paul before it was cool, hipster, I guess. And then I had some criticisms later once I actually dug into his past, but that's besides the point. Like overall, I think Ron Paul was a net good. I'll just leave it there. But anyways, I got on. I forgot. Yeah. So anyways, yeah, like so I became like an anarcho-capitalist in 2007. Started becoming a little bit more kind of like a David Friedmanite in like the early 2010s, like 2012 ish. That's when I started kind of favoring more of the kind of David Friedman stuff. So I had been reading Austrian economics. I've been reading Chicago economics. I've been reading a lot of philosophy and ethics stuff regarding libertarianism for quite some time. And I've even gotten to the deep weeds on a lot of these things. And so for me to go back into kind of stuff that's kind of like basic libertarian talking points, like taxation is theft, that sort of thing, it gets boring, right? And Matt, I don't know what kind of hobbies you're into, right? But let's say that you're like into video games, right? and you want to, and you're talking about like speed running, and that's where you're at in your video game kind of career, and someone wants to like let's just say that you're really into like speed running like Halo, right? I don't know. I don't think anybody who watches me even plays Halo. Um, but let's just say that I have like one subscriber that's really interested in speed running Halo. Um, and I come up to them and I tell them like, hey, there's this really cool game called Halo, and it's pretty dope, and it's got like aliens and stuff. You should really play it. Next time you play, you should really try this little trick. Don't that machine gun that they give you? It's not that great. There's a get the little alien pistol thing. It's actually a whole lot better. You're like, why are you telling me this? Like, this is stuff that like speedrunners have been knowing for like a long time, and this is like people who've been playing Halo for a long time know that that little pistol thing is way overpowered. And that's why am I going to watch like content that's kind of that level when I'm already at the level where I'm like trying to do like tricks that that warp me into other parts of the map and stealing ghosts and stuff like that, that's technically there should be no way for me to get a hold of, but I'm getting a hold of them anyway, by like tapping my gun on certain parts of a ghost. It will warp me to another part of the map, and you're sitting there telling me that like, hey, if you go over here, you can actually skip like a scene or two. It's like, yeah, I already know that. That's been known for quite some time. This is basic stuff. Or like you're trying to tell me about the story of Halo. It's like, yeah, I speed run the game. Like I played it 100 million times. Like I know the story inside and out. I'm at the point where I'm like skipping the cutscenes because I don't care anymore because I've heard it like a million times. Right. That's kind of where I am with people like Eric July, and or at least the content they used to do. So, and it's not a dig on that. I think that stuff is necessary. There needs to be introductory stuff in libertarianism, but it's not content that's relevant to me. Is that an easy? That's easy. So at one point, yeah. And there's other things that I was kind of interested in. Like I was kind of interested in his kind of takes on games like Cyberpunk 2077, a game that I regret buying. I got that. I was so excited for it. Took it home, played it, and I was like, this is a fucking broken, buggy mess. And the story was, and all the things that we were promised about how the game was going to work was completely untrue. And so I was kind of interested in his kind of, I watched his review of that. I always thought it was kind of interesting when he did live streams where he would like tear down his haters or monetize his haters type thing. I thought that stuff was kind of fun. Or when he would like rip someone a new asshole, for being a dumbass or something like that. I think that was entertaining stuff, right? But anytime he ever talked about basic libertarianism stuff, and it's true for anybody, and it wouldn't matter if I liked you or not. Like this is not interesting to me at all. This is very basic stuff. Like I'm far more interested in watching like people like Unithar or Danny Duchamp, who kind of talk about these kind of topics very in depth, right? And kind of go to the core of why these are issues. And I'm not really interested in the kind of topical stuff that's basic bitch libertarianism stuff. And that's not a dig. I'm just saying there's for someone in his position who is reaching out to a lot of kind of conservatives, especially being on the Blaze, you definitely need someone who's going to talk very basic for those types of people. However, I quickly kind of became disillusioned with a lot of this stuff, and so I've always been kind of like very skeptical of him as a personality. And this kind of goes back to basically when he would just like lose his shit at me for just saying like, I'm not a fan of your band. It's and because I got the genre wrong of his band, like my opinion doesn't matter or it's wrong. It's like, no, I'm not wrong that I don't like your type of music, even if I got the style of genre incorrect. I don't know how you can get away with right, how you get off on saying that, like I'm wrong about not liking something, right? I I can understand because I do this all the time, right? Like people will tell me like, "Oh, Freddy Got Finger Guts, sucks. It's a shitty movie." It's like, no, you're wrong. It's a great movie, and you just haven't learned to enjoy it yet. You're wrong. But that's all in jest. It's all kind of like tongue in cheek. But for someone to try to argue with me that that I'm wrong about his music being good for me, because that's what I was saying. Like, if people enjoy it, that's fine. It's not for me. It's not my type of music. And I was just kind of like, this guy has like a really kind of a big ego problem, and whatever. It's like, that's fine. I guess big personalities need that kind of ego, right? Molyneux had an ego that was way worse, way worse. And that's probably why he got so popular, is because he knew that he was the best. People thought he was also, right? But I digress. So Eric had come out with this. He had been making a lot of content where his kind of the shtick was DC and Marvel hate their audience, and the reason why they hate their audience is because they keep producing content that insults the readers of these properties, fans of the people who have been fans of these properties. They're just basically spitting on them and saying, like, like, it's fine that you think that Superman is just like this alien from another planet who fell in love with who's in love with Lois Lane and all that stuff. No, you're wrong. He's really gay, and he's going to like fly around with a gay flag, and that's the story arc. The story arc is Superman is gay. That's that's the story. Oh, what does he do with his gayness? Well, he fights bad guys, but he's also gay. Well, it's like, that's not a story. That's just, you're just putting a label on him, right? And they've been doing this for a while. And to be fair, like, that's kind of annoying. But comics are not my forte, right? I do like reading stuff that Alan Moore does. That's kind of my bread and butter. But other than that, I really don't like the whole kind of format of comics. I can appreciate good art, but the kind of whole superhero thing, unless you get like someone like Batman, who is just like a normal guy, who's just very smart, and has a lot of money to buy, to make cool gadgets and stuff, something that's a little bit more grounded. Like, I just never really kind of got interested in, like, oh, I got, my bones are made out of titanium or whatever the fuck it is. And, I have claws that come out of my thing, and and if you cut me, you can watch my skin heal instantly. And I could fly around and, punch people, in the sky, and spin around the earth and make time go backwards. Like, that's not very interesting to me. Right. And and the only time that stuff is really interesting to me, if it's written very differently, if like they're flawed people, because usually those kind of superheroes are not very flawed. I mean, they can be like, there's story arcs where they have, they have some conflicts and stuff, but for the most part, a lot of them is like, Superman is just awesome. Like, he is a great moral judge of character at all times, and he's always doing the right thing, and he never does wrong, and he always wins. And I know a lot of people are gonna be like, well, actually, in Superman 228, I don't care. Like, that's generally the idea of Superman, right? Generally speaking, and that's not very interesting to me. But now, if Superman had some kind of like interesting ways of looking at the earth that I would view as flawed, like Dr. Manhattan is, okay, then now that's interesting. Like, that's really interesting. Or, if you have like a superhero who is morally ambiguous, or who is kind of like an anti-hero type of thing, like, that's when it starts getting interesting. And that's why things like Watchmen and V for Vendetta and League of Extraordinary Gentlemen and all that sort of stuff, Alan Moore stuff, kind of is kind of interesting to me, because it's an interesting take on that kind of genre. Whereas the genre had always been in this kind of place of like, this, the good guy is always good, and the bad guy is always bad, and the bad guy always have like explicitly evil intentions. Like, and that's kind of how I viewed a lot of the kind of comic media that I've stumbled into outside of Alan Moore, where you can actually kind of empathize with, or at least understand where the bad guy is coming from. Like, he doesn't see himself as a bad guy. He sees himself as a really good guy who's doing something really good. I just disagree with him on that, and I think he's doing some terrible things in the name of that. And the good guys, you're like, yeah, like, you're overall pretty good. Like, I'm siding with you, but I don't think you're a very particularly good guy, especially in the case for V. I think V was a very awful person, but you kind of rooted for him because the people he was going against were like actual fascists, like Nazis, who were, just like oppressing their people and stuff like that. And you were like, yeah, I'm willing to side with this kind of awful guy because he wasn't nearly as awful as the people who he was fighting against. And so you're kind of, so he's kind of doing some interesting things. That's why I like Alan Moore. Sorry to get off. And so I've also been very interested in, like, in storytelling, especially when I got a little bit more into films and how stories are being told and how 3-act structures work, and how the hero's journeys, story arcs work, and how to tell good stories. And not so much in the perspective of me writing stories, because I don't write stories, but I know how to tell stories, and especially when I'm doing other things, especially like when I'm talking to people about like whiskey and I'm doing like tastings and stuff. Because I think the most important the most important thing about whiskey is, like, the most important ingredient to whiskey is a story. 100%. I 100% agree with that. I digress again. So everybody kept talking about how ISOM was, and the people who were buying ISOM were much more interested in, like, how it was packaged. Like, oh, they put it in like this special box that protects your comic from getting damaged and stuff like that. Or, um, it came with like a hat or something like that. Like, they're much more interested in, like, oh, we're going to destroy the woke comic industry. And that a lot of those people were talking in terms of that. No one ever talked about like how good the story was. And so I had Larry on and we did the stream with bad audio and everything. Sorry about that. we're going to fix that. It's never going to happen again. Bad audio is a hate crime. I need to really put that back on my new mic stand. But so I ended up like trying to get through the first book of ISOM, and I got like halfway through it, and I was just like, I'm tapping out. Like, this is awful. I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you why ISOM is a bad story. I'm going to do it through a parallel, right? So here's the story of me going to the liquor store to buy this bottle, right? This is TX Texas straight bourbon whiskey finishing sherry oak cask. It's really good. Highly recommend. Dude, I love Texas whiskey. Texas whiskey is so interesting. So I'm going to tell this story in 2 different ways. This is not a true story, by the way. This is something I'm just making up on the fly. So last week I had a day off, and I figured I just got paid. And so I decided to go down and buy a bottle of whiskey, and I didn't know what to buy. So then I threw my shoes on, I got dressed, and then I headed out the door, and then I drove, and there was a deer crossed my path, right? And I drove around the deer, and so it didn't hit my car. And then I got down the street a little bit, and then one of the liquor stores I wanted to go to was closed. So I decided, okay, I'll just go somewhere else. And I went to the big liquor store instead, and they had a bigger selection. And because of that, they had more stuff. And I saw this kind of sitting in the corner. And then I went to the guy and I said, hey, is this stuff any good? And he was like, oh, dude, Texas whiskey is so good. And that TX stuff is really good. It's way better than their blended stuff. You really need to check it out. And then I bought it, and then I took it home and I drank it, and I really liked it. That's story one. Right off the bat, I'm pretty sure you're kind of like bored out of your mind. This is a terrible story, Jim. Like, this is the most boring story. I'm going to tell you a different version of the story, right? So, I needed to get like a new whiskey, right? And I was thinking kind of like Texas, right? And I don't know, it just seemed kind of weird today. So I decided, like, instead of going to like the big liquor store, I started to go to like one that was kind of out of the way a little bit. And I was driving over there, and then like a deer almost hit me, and I like swerved my car. And because I swerved my car, I don't know what happened. Like, it kind of like stopped. But because of that, like, my car wouldn't start, and I was kind of trapped almost like in this parking lot. So I kind of pushed it into the parking lot. But because, like I kind of was in this kind of weird area I didn't know too well. There was like this liquor store that I never seen. I must have drove by there like 100 times, but I never seen it. I figured, hey, this is probably a sign. I should probably go in. Then when I went in there, they had a lot of stuff that I had never seen before, and I was like, "What is this place? Like, this place is so cool." And it's even got like stuff that that I was having trouble finding. But way in the back, they had like this bottle, and like I was kind of like interested in kind of asking about it, and they're like, don't buy that one. You should buy this other one. It's really interesting." You know, so this is a kind of like a story. It's a little bit more interesting. It's still kind of a boring story because the topic is kind of lame, but whatever. But the reason why the first story is so much worse than the first one is because the story just was, I did this, and then I did this, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. That's not really a story, right? That's just a series of events that I'm kind of linking in a chain, right? Um, there's no real story arc, there's no real structure, there's nothing really there, and it's not really engaging, right? Um, a good story needs to start out with a good hook, like something that's going to be like, "Oh, I'm really kind of interested in what you're saying." Like the first thing you told me was kind of like, "Oh, I'm kind of interested in what you have to say." Like I'm telling, I'm just kind of interested in the story. If you start off the story by like just people kind of meandering about, like if you did like a movie and like for the first like 5 minutes of the movie, it's people walking around, like a politician saying like, "I cut crime," like that's not really interesting, right? However, if you start a story by saying like October 25th, 1985, dog carcass in the alley this morning, tire tread over burst body, another dead hooker in the alleyway, like you're going to be like, "Wait, what the fuck is happening here? Like, what is going on?" It's kind of ropes you in. And then the other part of that thing that made it a little bit more interesting, not saying it is interesting, what made it a little bit more interesting is because the story didn't go from, I did this, and then this happened, and then this happened. It was, I did this, but this happened. And then another conflict happened, like something that put me in another compromising situation. And because that happened, this happened. Because of the other thing that happened, this happened. Therefore, this happened. And that's a kind of a thing that like a lot of storytellers will kind of teach you is, if you have like beats in your story, like like you have like certain things that you want to happen in your story, and you can link any one of those things to, and then you're already in a bad position. The things that need to be in between those things is but or therefore. This happens, but this happens, and therefore this happens. This happens, therefore this happens. But this happens, then you get a conflict, and then then it gets resolved. That's how stories are kind of interesting told. If you watch how ISOM is being told, it's the same thing. We're in a city, a politician says something, and then they call ISOM, and then ISOM, they tell ISOM like, "Hey, go check on this girl," and then he goes and checks on the girl, and then he gets into a conflict with a guy, and then they had a fight, and then like he gets defeated by one of the guys, and then when he gets punched outside, like this girl comes in and starts fighting him even more because he thinks he's someone else, and then he goes to the hospital, and then he escapes from the hospital, and that's the whole story, and that's why I only got through halfway of the book, and that's why I'm going to say like I'm not a big fan of this kind of thing of storytelling. From what I understand, like the next book, a lot of this kind of stuff is, I kind of skipped ahead and read some spoiler people's summary of the story. Basically, he goes back and gets into the fight again with the same guy and wins. And there was nothing like, there's no story for him to get better as a person or for him to understand like the guy's weakness or something. He just got better and said, "I can do this," beat him up, got his suit back, and now he's ISOM. And it's like, okay, well, that's not really, he didn't grow as a character, right? He didn't learn anything. He didn't struggle to overcome. He didn't improve himself in any way. He didn't shake off any kind of bad habits or anything like that. It was just very much like, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then he tried again, and then he won. Okay, that's not really a story. That's not really a plot. That's really just a series of events that happen in a particular order. That's all it is. That's not really how a story is told. A good story, right? A good story is conflict. There is, there is danger. There's a sense of dread, right? Like every good story that you can think, there's always a point where everybody's like about to lose, right? Like think about like how the hero's journey kind of goes about. And the hero's journey is a great way of doing storytelling, especially if you're writing film or comics or anything like that. You start out, there's this guy, something happens that calls him to an action. He resists the call, but something forces his hand to get involved. He gets involved in the situation. He starts fighting. He starts to lose. He is like down on his luck. He is either completely lost or he's about to lose, but something happens that allows him to prevail and then win, and then there's a resolution to the story. There's a reason why stories are told this way, and it's because they're engaging. And they've been told this way for millennia. The reason why they tell these stories in these particular ways is because they're very much engaging and they trigger something very deep in the human psyche. Something that does not trigger anything or is engaging in any way is it's just a series of events, just a series of funny things. And that's why like you'll see like movies and you'll be like, yeah, there were some funny jokes in it or something, but something I just didn't like about it. I don't know why. It's probably because it was a series of and thens, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. Because that's like a big thing in a lot of these kind of bad storytelling. It's just and then. Now, I don't read a lot of comics, and I don't look at a lot of like comic artwork, and even the comic artwork that even something like Watchmen, right? Which I think I can't remember. It's Dave Gibbons, I think, who did the artwork for Watchmen. I really was not a fan of the artwork of that book's fucking whatever. It's not bad. I'm just saying, like, it's not like kind of the whole kind of comic book kind of style of artwork never really kind of interests me at all. So I'm not going to judge like how good or bad the artwork is in ISOM. I didn't notice anything particularly bad with it. But then again, it's not really my cup of tea. I'm not really interested in any way. It never really, the whole kind of genre doesn't interest me. So I'm not going to really critique it on that. And I know that there's people who have been dogging on it for whatever reason. And again, it's not my forte. And because it's not my forte, I'm not going to really comment on it or try to critique it because even if it was good, I wouldn't like it anyway. To be overgeneralized, right? I'm not really interested in it anyway. It's not really my thing. Let me see this. 1 second. Gotta reload something. Okay. All right. So yeah, it's just not for me. And look, I know there's a lot of talk about like what's been going on with Eric July behind the scenes and in terms of all this stuff. But the thing that's been bothering me the most is we kept getting like lectured by a lot of these people, maybe not with Comic Gate specifically. I mean, Comic Gate has been talking about this a lot, and they're probably right. I don't read enough comics to know. Where everything is like, well, if you don't like this new Superman comic where he's gay, it's because you're homophobic. Or if you don't like Black Panther, it's because you're racist. Or if you don't like Miles Morales, it's because you're racist. Or if you don't like Captain Marvel, it's because you hate women. You're a misogynist. And they had been rightly pointing out that that's kind of awful to frame that stuff. It doesn't really matter. Oh, you are racist. Well, that's fine. I hate garbage. That's fine. But this was supposed to be like an answer to that, where we're not gonna get into that kind of whole thing of you don't like this, it's because you're racist. Well, you don't like this because you're whatever. But then when you start criticizing Eric July for the things that he's been doing or his comic, or you're not a big fan of it, but even if you're like coming at this as like, I wish you the best, but this is not for me. You'll run into a lot of people, a lot of his defenders. And it's not Eric July's fault. You can't control people who like you, right? You can control your community. Like if you have a community, right, you can always ban people who are bad actors and stuff. But if it's just like someone who just buys your comic, you can't and then defends you online, you can't control that. That's just, unless you're going to sit there and spend most of your day chasing off anybody who you find like untasteful. Like no one has time for that, right? And I really hate when like Fakertarians does this shit. Like, well, Eric July fucking panders to the alt right because some of his fans are alt right. It's like, one, cap. Two, it's like Eric July is like, he's got a lot of things on his plate, and how are you going to fucking criticize him for like other people liking him? Or you can't control that. Like, there's going to be unsavory people who like you no matter what. And in the case of Fakertarians, like, one of their admins is perfectly okay with calling up government agencies and snitching on people because of Twitter beef and trying to get their occupational license taken away. That's fine. That's completely fine. But for Eric July to have like one fan who said the N-word with a hard R, that's bad, right? Like, this, come on, don't give me that shit. Right? Oh, right now I'm drinking water. But I got two things next to me, and I'm thinking about cracking them open. Well, first of all, I don't know. I know that you're really into bourbon. I don't know. I don't know what your deal is with Scotch. Maybe I should have you on. But I got Killoman Macchiato Bay, which is an Isla Scotch, which I have been completely in love with the first time I tried Killoman. I just bought it on a whim. I was like, I never had anything from Killoman. And then I was like, oh shit, it's an integrity bottling. This is fucking great. And then I tried the Sanig, and I was like, oh my God, this is fucking amazing. I need to try their other stuff. And then I got their Macchiato Bay, and I'm like, this is like a better version of Lefroy. Like, holy shit. And then the other thing I got is TX Texas bourbon, but this is their I don't think it's cast strength. It's 101.6 proof. And it's finished in sherry casks. It's fucking amazing. The first time I drank out of it, it had like this weird kind of plasticky taste. But then I let the bottle kind of sit open for a couple minutes and then shook it. Once it oxidized, it just became beautiful. This is a fucking amazing whiskey. I'm gonna keep this. I'm keeping this around too. Yeah, maybe you should. Maybe we should do a tasting. I'm not going to use a Glencairn because I just want to relax right now. This is my day off. This is like my first day off in quite a while. Okay. Oh, Texas whiskey or TX whiskey? Are you against the Firestone Roberts stuff? Is that what it is? Maybe I'm not really good at Halo on PC, to be honest. Like, I'm so much better with the controller, and because you're going to probably play it on PC, you're probably going to kick my ass. So, like, the TX blended, I tried it. It was kind of net. It's a lot of it's sourced anyway, so I'm not the hugest fan of it, but I thought it was not terrible. I think that was my kind of goal with it. But this is the stuff that they are distilling at their own distillery, and then they're aging it there and then finishing it. And I've been falling in love with Texas whiskey in general. Yeah, Texas whiskey, a lot of it's kind of this is I think this is not pot still. This is column still, but most of the big brands in Texas, they are using pot stills, except for TX is using column, and then Still Austin is also doing column still. But if Texas or Still Austin, if you try it, it doesn't really have a lot of kind of tech, like what you classic Texas notes. There's a little bit of it, but not a lot, because they do a lot of stuff to try to mitigate or to fight against the high heat they have in Texas. It was fucking good. Yeah, so they try to make it very much like a Kentucky bourbon, more than trying to make it like a Texas whiskey, which I guess is good. But I think out of all the brands that I've tried so far, they're kind of lower on my list. They're still really good. I still keep it around, but Rebecca Creek is awful. Like, the one thing that I tried from Rebecca Creek has been absolutely bad. Cheers. What's up? What's up, Andrew? I haven't seen you in a while. Yeah, I hear the pick your own barrel. What is it called? I forget what it's something like that. Pick your own barrel, CYPB. I heard that's amazing, but I'm at this point now where it's like I tried to get some allocated stuff, and the best I can do is Special Reserve Weller, and Buffalo Trace. I cannot find an Eagle Rare to save my life. I can't fucking do it. I can't do it. And I have a store just right down the street from me who, they get a lot of allocated stuff. And every time I try to peek in there to see if they got it, they never do. So create your perfect barrel. There we go. Yeah, because they're batched. They're very kind of batch specific. Yeah, like a lot of stuff that like has like a lot of reputation for being very batch specific that also has bad picks some years. Like I'm very skeptical about buying. Which is why I've never bought a bottle of Bamore, because people will tell me like Bamore one batch would be amazing and the best whiskey they've ever had in their entire life, and then another batch is just like, this is garbage. Why did you release this? So I'm like, I'm not even going to gamble. And I won't gamble. And I'm always hesitant about buying Ardbeg because they have some inconsistencies too. But even their bad releases are not terrible. They're just kind of like, oh, this wasn't as good as the last time I bought it. The next store next to the HEB near you is good, except they keep the bourbon. Yeah. Oh, dude, I will not buy Twin Liquors ever. Ever. I will never buy at Twin Liquors. I like to go in there and peek around and stuff. And if I do buy something, it'll be like the gin, because the gin is in the center of the store, and the gin doesn't really get hit with sunlight as much, because it doesn't have the tannins. The sunlight is what ruins whiskey. Is it's the sunlight hitting the tannins of the barrel. And there's no tannins in gin unless it's like a barrel aged gin. So yeah, I just won't buy from there. I just won't do it. I usually just go to Skips, or I'll go to Specs. And if I need to get something like Scotch specific at a good price, I'll drive into town and go to Total Wine, because Total Wine is really good about Scotch. Skips is okay. They got a selection sometimes, and especially the one that's across the street from Bucky's. That one has some stuff, right? That one has some stuff, but not a super lot. And then Total Wine just has almost everything. Almost anytime I need Scotch, they got my back, including Longmore. I have to go to Austin to get Longmore next time though, because they can't keep it in stock in San Antonio. Yeah, I really hate Twin Liquors. I just won't go there. Are you talking about Skips? I know there's another one that's kind of like a really small store I have not been to yet. But because it's Sunday, I can't go today. This has been my only day off, but I've been kind of itching to look at that place, but I haven't gotten around to it yet. I don't even remember. I have it on my saves in Yelp. Which anytime I get recommended to go to a place or something looks interesting, I'll throw it on my Yelp list of things to go try out. That's on there. I think we're talking about the same place. It looks like kind of like a smaller store. God, I don't want to look it up. But anyways, yeah. New Braunfels is an absolutely fucking awesome town. And I don't know what took me so long to finally get out here, because I kept coming out here for various reasons. Because I wanted to go to Buggies, because I was also working through an agency, and the agency, like, for a while, the only jobs that they had were in New Braunfels. And I kept coming out here. And I was dating a girl who kept wanting to come out here for various reasons, because it was a neat little shop. Like, she wanted to check out, they had this ice cream store behind Bucky's. Excuse me. It's over there, like behind the Bucky's. And it's an ice cream store called Tipsy, and they have alcoholic ice cream. And she was like, we're going to go to New Braunfels. And I was like, why? She's like, you're going to see. And I was like, well, can we go to Bucky's? And she's like, yeah, we'll go to Bucky's, but you have to come with me. And I was like, okay. So we went. She used Bucky's to get me to go to this little ice cream. I'm like, oh, ice cream? She's like, no. Trust me. You'll like this ice cream. And I was like, oh, shit. It's alcoholic. Sweet. So that was kind of neat. So I kept coming out here for various reasons. And then I got a job, and this place had like numerous, I'm trying to be like very vague about it because I don't want people fucking with my employer. And they said like, hey, like, we have some, like we could use you in San Antonio, but we could even use it in more in like either San Marcos or New Braunfels. Would you want to try out for that? I was like, yeah, hell yeah. Let's just fuck it. Let's do it. Let's fucking pull the trigger. I'm not a big fan of San Antonio. Like I was getting really kind of down on it. It kind of reminded me of Riverside, California, like in the 1980s. I was kind of getting over it. RNH Liquors. Let me look at that up. Here. Is it really? It's not really showing. There we go. RNH Liquors. Yeah, there it is. RNH Stores, New Braunfels, R&B. Never mind. Here it is. Or is it? R&B Liquors. Permanently closed. Oh, yeah. It's a UPS store now. So that's not it. RH. Beer and wine. Spirits and cordials. I think this might be it. RNH Stores. Liquor. Yeah, it's called RNH Store. It's on Loop 337. Oh, yeah. This is a tiny little store. This is adorable. Every time I really don't want to like say it bad, but I mean, I'm saying it in a good. I've never seen this one. Of course, all the pictures that they have are shit like Johnny Walker and fucking Cirque vodka and Grey Goose. Sweet tea liquor. Yeah. It's always weird when people take pictures of take photos of like liquor stores. They never look at the good whiskeys. They're always like, oh, dude, they got Malibu. Like, I don't care. Of course they have fucking Malibu. It's a liquor store. Why wouldn't they have Malibu? Yeah. I need to go check out some smaller places. But I've noticed that the smaller places are really the prices on, especially Scotch, are bad. Like I like Skips, but I would never buy Scotch there. They had Monkey Shoulder for what's it, $40? $40 for Monkey Shoulder. I could buy that at Specs for 30. I could buy that at Total Wine for like 26. That's ridiculous. Like, it's absolutely insane. And the one thing that's kind of shitty about Scotch is there's no barrel picks, right? There is no like Skips barrel pick of of like Kilwoman or something. There's never. But there are Balcones. You can get a barrel. There's a store pick in every store of fucking Balcones, and I love them all. Every one that I've had has been absolutely phenomenal. Maybe I should crack open this Machir Bay. So, anyways, getting back to what I was saying. But like a lot of people will come at people who are critical of Eric July's comic and be like, "Oh, you just hate him because he's black. You're just racist." Ethan Van Sciver's racist because he's been speaking out against Eric July, sending him night letters. And it's like, fuck off. Seriously, fuck off. Like this like we spent so much time. And I'm not saying we because I don't care about comics. But the collective we. You had spent so much time complaining that Marvel and DC has been just turning everything into like a race issue. Everybody's racist because you don't like Superman being gay. And now we're doing the exact same thing, but we're doing it for Eric July, so it's okay. What is the difference? Like, what is the difference really? Other than his comic doesn't have it specifically. There's nothing in the comic that's like, oh, this character is gay and you should feel bad because he's gay. Or, this person is black. And, he's still suffering from systemic racism from the past. And okay, maybe that stuff's not in the comic, but it's definitely in the comment section. Anytime I say I'm not a fan, what's really the big difference? between the way you're behaving and the way they're behaving, other than, they don't put it in the book. I guess that's better. But if you keep this up, this is the direction you're going to go down. And if the direction is going to be, if that's going to be the culture of Comicsgate, is you're going to accuse anybody who disagrees with you of being racist or ableist or transphobic or whatever, then we might as well just fucking start buying DC comics or turning Comicsgate comics into DC shit and just making fucking Cyberfrog gay. To make ISOM fucking non-binary. Why not? If that's the culture we're going to go down, why not just fucking go in deep, balls deep? Goddamn, Coloman always kills it for a young distillery. They're fucking amazing. So I think they were the youngest distillery on Isla. There's a couple new ones that are opening up. I think there's a reopening of Port Ellen. There's a couple more that started up. I don't think anybody has been releasing stuff, but Kiloman was the first new distillery on Isla for over 200 years or something like that. And I think they opened in the early 2000s, and their first released was in 2006. So they're a fairly young distillery, and they're producing stuff that's 46% or higher, non-chill filtered, no natural color. Just fucking killing it. Just fucking killing it. And everything that I've liked so far, I've been, it's been second to Brooklady. I think Brooklady is still my favorite distillery on Isla. It didn't used to be. I used to be Lagavulin, but Lagavulin's been getting way overpriced. And especially, I'm not going to pay fucking $100 for a 16-year-old bottle of scotch that's chill filtered and watered down to 43%. And not only that, but they've been moving a lot of their fucking cask aging away from the ocean. So you're not getting a lot of those kind of oceany notes anymore out of it. And it's kind of unfortunate. Fucking Diageo, they keep pissing me off, dude. Every fucking time, dude. They'll buy a distillery and they'll just make them produce shit or shittier versions of what they were doing. I hope they don't fuck with Oban too much. I really don't. I really hope they don't fuck with Oban too much. Let's see. Let me check my Twitter real quick. Oh, I'm in the wrong account. Probably people are sending me messages and stuff. No. Imagine being this person. Oh, Matthew Perry. So yeah, Matthew Perry died. Which I'm not a big fan of Friends, obviously. Right? I didn't need to say that out loud. but what I was a big fan of was Chris Farley. And even his crappier movies when I was younger, like Beverly Hills Ninjas and Almost Heroes, I still liked them. I was like, yeah, but they're not as good as Black Sheep, and it's especially not as good as Tommy Boy, right? Because those are his greatest films. And yeah, and so when I heard that Matthew Perry died, my immediate reaction was not to think of Friends, but to think of Almost Heroes, which is a really obscure movie. When I found out that he died, I told 3 coworkers. I was like, "Hey, did you hear that Matthew Perry died?" And they're like, "Yeah, that's crazy, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I was like, "I really liked Almost Heroes." They're like, "What's that?" Every single person, without exception, nobody knew. I'm pretty sure everybody who's listening to me right now, or will listen to the later the replays of this, we're gonna be like, "What the fuck is Almost Heroes?" So Almost Heroes, there was a theory that was going around for a while. Be careful if you're a fat actor or a fat comedian. Don't do a movie about the old Wild West because you're gonna die next. You'll be the next one that dies. Because John Candy did Wagons East, which is a very similar movie to Almost Heroes, in terms of the environment, I guess, the setting, I guess. And then he died during the filming. They said that he finished his thing, or finished his scenes in it, but there's some stuff in there that kind of shows that maybe they reused, or they edited some stuff to make it fit to kind of close out the story because he couldn't get any more scenes with him. And the same thing is sort of true of Almost Heroes. Like I think he died kind of like at the tail end of filming. And so they were kind of reusing shots on him as well. So basically the story is Matthew Perry is kind of like this rich elite aristocrat, kind of American, kind of rubbed elbows with a lot of the founding fathers. And there's a scene where like he's chatting with Aaron Burr. And he gets tasked to go on an expedition to expand westward, and to go to the Pacific. And Lewis and Clark had like a 2-week head start, but they're trying to beat Lewis and Clark because he wants to be in the history books as the guy who first went out there. But he's like very aristocrat. He has like a slave with them, and he's lugging around like giant like bathtubs and stuff for his hair and clothing and just like kind of all kinds of dumb luxuries you don't need when you're going on an expedition like that. And Chris Farley kind of plays like the tracker guy. Like, he's the guy who by trade, he's a tracker. And, he has a problem with drinking, and he is kind of like he's an oof because, it's a Chris Farley character. And they go across and they're kind of, and all the people that are with them are kind of like either scammers or retarded or whatever, a little bit slow. And and so they just go west, and it's a bit hilariosity ensues. That's kind of the whole story of it. It's not a great movie, and I tried watching it last night because I was sitting, so I didn't really have to do much. And the person I was sitting fell asleep, and so I was like, okay, I'll watch this. And yeah, it was kind of a dumb movie. I barely got like halfway through it, and I'm like, this is not the greatest story. It's just basically a Chris Farley vehicle. And this is the time where Chris Farley was just kind of, he was doing a lot of drugs, and he was drinking a lot, and he was kind of just taking whatever he could get to kind of fuel his kind of party attitude. And he was taking some really bad ones, like Beverly Hills Ninja was just awful. I wouldn't say this one is awful. It's definitely it's no Black Sheep, and it's definitely no Tommy Boy. Tommy Boy is the greatest movie he's ever done. Well, greatest movie he's ever starred in, right? Wayne's World was a better movie, but he was only in it for like a minute, maybe. Wayne's World 2, he was good in it, but he was in total probably like 2.5 minutes, Yeah, but I don't know. It's kind of weird. And I know that like Matthew Perry, because I always heard kind of like rumors of, it was kind of interested me when I would hear people talk about like alcoholism, because alcoholism is like something that really bothers me. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that I work with a lot of CWA people, people who are like withdrawing from alcohol addiction. That is awful. If alcohol addiction is some of the worst, or alcohol withdrawals are some of the worst things I've ever seen. People die from it. People get delusional from it. They think they're in different places at different times. They're seeing people that aren't there. I wouldn't say they're hallucinations. They're more delusions, right? You're like kind of stuck in halfway between, like dreaming and not, because you're always awake, right? You're not going to fall asleep. And so you start getting delirious from, lack of sleep. You start dreaming with your eyes open, kind of like how meth people do. But it's not because you're high. It's because you're not high. And it's fucked up. Like alcoholism is nasty. Alcoholism is nasty. So anytime I hear about like someone struggling with alcoholism, it kind of, kind of interests me. Like Smash Mouth, that was kind of an interesting kind of case to follow. And then he just recently died too. But I have a feeling that maybe he got drunk, because I know that he was struggling with alcohol addiction. I think he also had some painkiller addictions too, or something like that. And then I guess he drowned in his pool. And then my first thought was immediately like he probably relapsed and got drunk and passed out in his pool and slipped down into the pool and drowned while he was sleeping. Kind of unfortunate. We'll see what happens, but I don't know. I mean, his career never really interests me anyway, because that's Friends and Fools Rush In. Did he do the whole 9 yards, or who was that? Let's see. Let me check his filmography. Yes. Serving Sarah. Like, yeah, a lot of these, a lot of rom-coms. Oh, no, yeah, he did do Whole Nine Yards. That was him. Almost Heroes, Fools Russian, Fat Man, Little Boy. Oh, there's a bit part. So he did a few bit parts. Yeah, a lot of TV stuff. So yeah, it never really interested me. I guess the only thing that really ever interested me was, when he worked with Chris Farley, which Chris Farley was great. Yeah. Anyways, I'm gonna wrap this stream up. Thank you for coming by. We're still nothing. Thankfully, we're nothing into the Malort. Got my Malort here. I got I got a Malort holder for it. Actually, this is some 90s Taco Bell vibes right here, dude. Yeah. This is back in the day where like a lot of cars didn't come with cup holders, and so like you put this in like your little window, the little thing that you slip this in your little window thing, and then this holds onto the door. And then you have a cup holder. But this is for Malort. This is my Malort holder. Then I have this nasty shit. Barrel aged Malort, which is the truly most foulest thing I've ever consumed in my entire life. Yeah, this is it's like rancid bitter. Like it tastes like what you imagine trash juice would taste like. The juice that falls out of your trash bag and you're like, ah, shit, it stinks. That's what I imagine it tastes like. It's really bad. Anyways, I'm going to wrap this thing up. I'm going to thank my sponsors or my patrons. I'm still getting used to going back to using this thing. It's been a while. Anyways, I will talk to you guys later. Hail Mephi and worms.